He was standing in the back of a noisy restaurant kitchen, his hands burned by hot water and cheap soap, when the manager yelled that he was easily replaceable. At that moment, with barely $50 in his
Você está de
pocket,
brincadeira comigo?
broken English
Faça
on his
direito
tongue, and
agora!
no legal
Eu não
papers.
pago você pra fazer
No one
errado!
in that room could
Rápido!
imagine that this same man would one day become a millionaire in the United States. Not even him. When he arrived in America, there was no celebration, no welcoming committee, no second chances waiting at the airport. Just fear. Fear of being stopped. Fear of being questioned. Fear of failing and having to return home with nothing but shame. He came from a small town where opportunities were scarce, and dreams felt like luxuries for other people. Back there, everyone said the same thing. America is not for people like you. Still, he left, not because he was brave, but because staying felt even more terrifying than leaving. The first weeks were brutal. He slept on the floor of a shared apartment with too many people and not enough space. The air smelled of sweat, cheap food, and exhaustion. Every morning started before sunrise, not because he wanted to, but because survival demanded it. His first job came through a distant acquaintance who didn't ask many questions. Washing dishes, 10 hours a day, sometimes 12, sometimes more. No benefits, no security. Just cash at the end of the week and the silent agreement that he wouldn't cause trouble. In that kitchen, he was invisible. Customers never noticed him. Servers barely acknowledged his presence. He didn't understand most conversations, but he understood tone, impatience, disdain, urgency. Plates piled up faster than he could clean them. His hands cracked and bled. His back ached constantly. There were days he went home so tired that he fell asleep without eating. And yet, every night, lying on that cold floor, he told himself the same thing. This is temporary. But temporary has a way of stretching when nothing changes. Months passed, then years. He learned English slowly, mostly by listening. He memorized phrases, copied accents, repeated words under his breath while scrubbing plates. Mistakes were common. Embarrassment was constant. People laughed sometimes. Others got annoyed. He smiled anyway, not because it didn't hurt, but because he couldn't afford to react. At some point, the dream started to fade. The idea of becoming successful in America began to feel childish, unrealistic. He watched others move forward while he stayed in the same place. Same sink, same uniform, same exhaustion. He sent money home whenever he could, even when it meant sacrificing his own comfort. Back home, his family believed he was doing well. He never corrected them. Admitting the truth felt like failure. Everything changed on a night that seemed completely ordinary. The restaurant was closing late. Most of the staff had left. He was finishing the last batch of dishes when he overheard a conversation between the owner and a supplier. They were arguing about money, margins, and delays. He didn't understand every word, but he understood enough. For the first time, he wasn't just hearing English. He was understanding business. That moment planted a seed, a dangerous one, because hope can be more painful than despair. He started paying attention, asking quiet questions, watching how orders were placed, how inventory was managed, how prices were negotiated. During breaks, instead of resting, he observed. He didn't have capital. He didn't have connections. But he had time, patience, and a growing hunger to learn. He took a second job, then a third, cleaning offices at night, helping with small repairs on weekends. Every dollar that wasn't sent home was saved, not spent on comfort, not spent on pleasure. Saved with a purpose he couldn't yet fully explain. His body deteriorated faster than his bank account grew. There were moments he considered giving up, moments when deportation felt easier than continuing. But something inside him refused to quit. Years later, with a small amount of money and a risky amount of confidence, he made his first move. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't revolutionary. He started a tiny side hustle related to the same industry that had trapped him for so long. Food. He knew it better than anything else. He partnered with someone who spoke fluent English, trusted the wrong people at first, lost money, got cheated, learned the hard way. Failure didn't disappear when he left the sink. It followed him closely. Every mistake felt heavier because the margin for error was small. One wrong decision could erase years of sacrifice. Still, this time, failure felt different. It wasn't humiliating. It was instructional. He adjusted, adapted, learned faster than before. Slowly, things began to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, but enough to notice. Income stabilized, then increased. He reinvested everything. He worked even more than before, but now the hours felt different. They belonged to him. He wasn't washing dishes anymore. He was building something. The turning point came when he took a risk that terrified him. He expanded. Bigger space, bigger costs, bigger consequences. Friends warned him. Family worried. Logic said wait. Fear said stop. But instinct said move. He signed the papers with shaking hands, knowing that failure this time would mean losing everything. The first months were chaos, stress, doubt, sleepless nights. But then momentum. Customers returned. Word spread. Contracts followed. One opportunity led to another. He hired his first employee, then a second, then 10. The same man who once feared being replaced now employed others who depended on him. Money started flowing in ways he had never experienced. Not just enough to survive, but enough to grow, enough to plan, enough to dream again. He paid off debts, helped his family, invested wisely, expanded beyond what he had originally imagined. The kitchen sink that once defined his life became a distant memory. Years after that first humiliating shift, the numbers finally told the truth he had been afraid to believe. He was a millionaire, not on paper only, but in reality. Assets, businesses, stability, freedom, the American dream, so often mocked, had become real for someone who once scrubbed plates until his fingers went numb. But success didn't erase the past. He still remembered the cold floor, the fear of sirens, the feeling of being invisible. Those memories shaped how he treated people. Employees were not disposable. Effort mattered. Loyalty mattered. He built a reputation not just as a successful businessman, but as a fair one. Today, when people hear his story, they focus on the ending, the money, the success, the title of millionaire. What they don't see are the years of silence, the humiliation, the loneliness, the constant fear of losing everything. They don't see the nights when quitting felt logical and continuing felt insane. His journey wasn't about luck. It wasn't about shortcuts. And it certainly wasn't easy. It was about endurance, about showing up when no one cared, about learning when no one taught, about believing in a future that offered no guarantees. From washing dishes in the shadows to building a life in the light, his story is not proof that everyone will succeed. It is proof that some people refuse to disappear, even when the world gives them every reason to. And somewhere right now, in the back of another restaurant, someone else is standing at a sink, exhausted, unnoticed, wondering if it's worth it. This story exists for that person. Because sometimes the distance between a dishwasher and a millionaire is not talent, money, or connections. It's a decision to not stop,